Hey, good morning, good afternoon, or as we say in Greece, Kalimera. Get used to that. Kalimera, good morning. Well, welcome to ancient Greece. We have a picture of the Acropolis and a picture of a euro. Which one are you looking at? I'm willing to bet the euro. Alrighty, ancient Greece. Ancient Greece kicks off about circa 1600 BC. It might be a little bit further back because of the discovery of some ancient graves, believe it or not, near my dad's village where I used to play soccer. Found some old school Mycenaean graves over there. Might actually push that start date back a little bit, but we're going to stick with circa 1600 until further notice. Why is this thing not moving? There we are. Two kinds of people in this world, Greeks and those who wish they were Greek. All right, remember subjectivity and objectivity? Yeah, Mr. H is of Greek descent, so I might be a little biased on some of these things. All righty, there's our dose of ethnic chauvinism for the day. Let's get rolling. Stinichiri, back in the beginning. We have Greek-speaking Indo-Europeans. Remember Indo-Europeans? Well, we have some of these guys who are speaking something resembling Greek are arriving on the shores of the Mediterranean circa 2000 BC. Something like recognizable Greek begins around circa 1600 BC, and remember, it might stretch back a little bit further. That, by the way, is the tomb of Agamemnon. Mycenaean graves tend to be dug into hillsides. We'll talk about what a Mycenaean is in just a second. And here they are. Told you it'd take about a second. Now, early Greece, we have Minoan and Mycenaean civilization. Sometimes you hear the word Mycenaean, but in Greece, you know, a C is a K. So either way is fine. I'm not going to worry about it. Now, if you get confused, remember, Mycenaean civilization, or Mycenaean, is up on the mainland, and Minoan civilization is on Crete. If you get confused, Minoan, right? Island of Crete looks like a minnow a little bit. Now, Minoan civilization started around, they guess, 2800 BC. As you can see, it lasts about 1600 BC. And then you look over here at the Mycenaean side of the coin, and you see it gets started about 1600 BC to 1100. Now, isn't that kind of odd? One picks up where the other one leaves off, huh? Well, there's a reason for that. Now, everything kicks off, Greek-wise, actually with the Minoan civilization on Crete. As you can see, Greece lives in a really interesting neighborhood. There's Palace of Knossos and Minoan Crete over there. You see a little island called Thera. That's going to be important. Hey, remember the Hittites? There they are. Hey, look, there's Troy. It's real. And let's not forget Egypt. Why am I pointing down at Egypt over here? Well, because a lot of Greek culture appears to come from Egypt. The original Minoan alphabet was something that resembled hieroglyphics, so I wonder where they got that idea from. And as you can see, it's not that long of a trip. Plus, a lot of Minoan architecture has kind of an Egyptian look to it. Here's Greece. What's the first thing you notice about this map? There's a lot of mountains there, not a lot of flat ground, which means it's kind of hard to have agriculture, or large-scale agriculture at any rate. So this kind of rough and tumble sort of environment is going to inspire the Greeks to go overseas and trade. And when they trade, they make contact with other people. Now, they have enough, they're good enough at architecture to with agriculture, their population is going to start to expand. And where are they going to go in such a crowded little place? Right, they're going to have to colonize outside. They're going to go as far as the Straits of Gibraltar. They'll go as far east as Asia Minor. Greeks all over the Mediterranean still are. They're all over the place. Just find a Euro stand. All righty. Now, here's the Palace of Knossos. This is the capital of Crete. Look at that. That looks kind of Egyptian, doesn't it? Now, some people theorize this could be Atlantis. Now, if you think about it, ancient advanced civilization on an island out in the ocean somewhere? Yeah, I don't know. Maybe. If you think about this, it's only a theory, of course. As we mentioned before, it could easily be an Egyptian offshoot. One strange thing to notice about Knossos is there's no defensive walls anywhere. Lots of ships, no walls. Why are they not building any walls? because their navy is strong enough to keep people away. Don't need a wall. Now, we do know there's an eruption on the island of Thera sometime between 1600 and 1500 BC. Why is this important? Because this is something that leads to a weakening of Crete. Because we also know there's an invasion somewhere around circa 1450 BC. How do we know there's an invasion? Because the language changes. Remember that? Yeah, all the records we have go from something that looks almost like hieroglyphics to something resembling Greek. Plus, when we go through the ruins, we find a thin layer of carbon. So that means stuff was burning. So they landed, they sacked the place, new management, no more Minoan language, we're back to what looks like Greek. So you have to work backwards sometimes. How did they invade this place? There you are, Thera, 1600 to 1500. Some kind of an eruption, maybe a global cooling of some kind, messed up the trade routes, killed the fish, ends up weakening Crete. As you can tell, sometimes with ancient history, you have to work backwards, right? So we've got an eruption in Thera, seaborne invasion somewhere in 1450 BC, change of language, thin layer of carbon on all the ruins. Yep, we've got ourselves an ancient Greek version of Saving Private Ryan. Speaking of Saving Private Ryan, the Trojan War, around circa 1200 BC. Yes, looks like Mycenaean Greece is very good at launching invasions across the ocean. Trojan War, well, how do we know this happened? We have a primary source. What's it called? The Iliad. And then Odysseus has to come back, and it's called the Odyssey, bouncing off every rock in the Aegean. Now, you guys know the details of that, so we're not going to get too into this. But the point I'm trying to make is there's an actual Trojan War. This really happened. Now, it might have been exaggerated, Achilles and Ajax, and of course the Trojan horse, but it did actually happen. Now, most people had considered the Trojan War to be a myth. And you're over there thinking, how could this possibly be considered a myth? Because they never found any ruins until Heinrich Schliemann went to go find them. Now, Homer is a blind poet who memorized the Iliad and Odyssey. He gets credited with it, even though he didn't actually write it. And Heinrich Schliemann, of course, read the Iliad and Odyssey, and guess what? Troy was exactly where Homer said it was going to be. I don't know why everybody has so much trouble finding it for 3,000 years. I mean, it's on a major trade route, man. How could you not see it, right? So anyway, they went digging, and they found a city underneath. In fact, they found several cities, one with a layer of carbon. Wow, that must have been a fight of some kind, burning things down. Do the old carbon-14 test, and guess what? They pop up with around circa 1200 BC. That's also, his exact date's 1184 BC, so it's actually pretty close. Still can't believe that. People thought Troy was a myth. I mean, it might be exaggerated or whatever, but it did happen. It was there. Now, Mycenaean Greece, 1600 BC, 1200 BC, around there. This is the era of Hercules and Odysseus and all these guys, Achilles. Now, after that big victory over Troy, something happened in the Eastern Mediterranean. We'll get to that in a minute. Let's talk about Mycenaean Greece. Very much a warrior society. Beginning of the polis. Polis means city. You've heard that before. Indianapolis, Minneapolis, right? City. Plural there is polis. And all cities are built around the marketplace, the agora. And that's same thing here. Every city you go to is a market street. And Market Street is where your city, wherever you may live, is where everything started from and everything branched out from there. And 10 bucks says it's close to the water, probably close to a river, right? If it's not close to a river, there's a direct road leading there. Don't take me up on that, you'll lose. Now, there's a huge gap between the rich and the poor. This is something you see throughout the ancient world. But hey, warfare is going to lead to democracy. Really? How does this lead to democracy? Well, if you take a look at how the ancient world is set up, you have the nobility, you have the middle class, usually called the word thetes, and of course slaves. Slaves have no rights. There's nobody in between. Democracy is going to be born on the battlefield, thanks to a formation called the phalanx. This is a phalanx. Got the helmet, the shields, spear or sword, and off you go. And the good thing about a phalanx is it's a solid wall. If that wall holds steady, It's not going to break. You will defeat the enemy. Chances are they're coming after you with a phalanx too in Greece, so it starts to look like a rugby scum where they smash into each other and see who breaks first. Now, who are these guys here in the front with the shields? Now, this guy, he's clearly an aristocrat over there directing everything. Who are these guys? They're not aristocrats. By definition, there's only so many aristocrats, right? So somewhere along the line, the aristocrats of a given city-state realize that, I need more people. Because if I only have like 5 aristocrats, somebody gets killed, down to 4. So let's find somebody who can afford armor, and you are going to be a hoplite. And these guys are probably farmers. They've made enough money to buy a shield and a spear. That's what you really need. A helmet's a really good idea. And off we go, fighting for a city-state. And then when the battle is over, these guys here in the front, they're going to talk to the aristocrat and say, hey, you owe us one. We fought for this city. We have a say in how it's run. A little bit hard for the aristocrat to argue with that logic. Plus, he's in a battle with these guys. He shed the same blood and the same mud. Very hard to argue with people you fought alongside of, and especially for the city-state. Welcome to democracy. Who's this little guy over here with the slingshot? You see, not everybody can afford armor, a spear, shields, or even a small sword. This guy's called a peltist, or you just call him slingshot guy if you like. Is he there? He probably doesn't own any land. He can't afford any real weaponry. But he's out there fighting too, right? So is he got a say in democracy? Yeah, he gets a say in it too. They might not listen to him quite as much as the guys up front, but he gets to voice an opinion. And if you're a peltist and you're really smart, what you do is you run behind everybody and somebody's dead or wounded, grab their shield. Guess what? You just became a hoplite. And if you're really smart, see somebody's name on their shield, you might be able to sell it back to them. A little bit of advice from your pal, Mr. H over here, in case you go back in time and end up in ancient Greece. Phalanx, as you can see, is still used today. Yep, that's in Greece. Greek cops, Greeks. Looks like Communist Workers' Party. Yep, there's the red stuff over there. Remember seeing that a few times last time I was there. Now, what happens if your spear breaks, your shield gets stolen, you're a peltist, and I don't know, you don't have any of those smooth rocks. You take these rocks and you smooth them so you make them like bullets, so they fly faster. What if you run out of everything? What do you do in Greece? It's Greece, man. There are plenty of rocks all over the place, right? Might not be a specifically shaped one, but hey, it'll work. And as you can see, things don't change, right? You always find a big enough stick, start swinging at somebody. I don't know what's up here with the umbrella, but like I said, you run out of weapons, find something to throw. I'm guessing that's not his umbrella. Maybe this guy's mad about his umbrella being taken. Don't really know. Now, around 1200, right, after the Trojan War, or 1184 if you're in Roman Schliemann's date, which is fine, something happens in the Eastern Mediterranean. We don't really know what happened. Some people call it the Sea Peoples, and the Bible's referred to as Philistines. Back in Greece, they called it the Dorian invasion. I call it Sons of Anarchy, BC. Don't have an exact date. We know what happened after the Trojan War. Eric Klein, as you can see, has traced it back to 1177 BC. Okay, I can run with that. But not only these guys sack Greece, they go through Phoenicia, current-day Lebanon, Egypt, the entire Aegean Sea, and Mycenaean Greece collapses. Civilization comes to a screeching halt in Greece. And we've got the Greek Dark Ages, circa 1200 BC, circa 800 BC. We don't have a whole lot of records. In fact, the only record we have is that of the Iliad from Homer, and that's in 750 BC. So he kind of missed the Dark Ages over there a little bit. So the Greek Dark Ages, not really sure what's going on. Stuff we do see, it's not entirely clear. We just know civilization came to a screeching halt, and that's why we call it the Greek Dark Ages. Now, around circa 800 BC, Greece starts to pull itself back together again. Now, let's talk about two words whose meanings have changed. Someone calls you a barbarian. Is that an insult? Okay, most people see that as an insult. There's a couple guys out there probably think it's a compliment. But nonetheless, most of contemporary society, which might exclude a couple of you guys, regards the name barbarian as an insult. In ancient Greece, barbarian is not an insult. In fact, you see the word over and over referring to people who are non-Greeks. It's not Greek chauvinism. Okay, maybe it's a little bit, but it's not something as an insult. All it means, barbarian, is a person who does not speak Greek. Right? They're basically saying, I can't understand this guy, all I hear is bar, 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 hence barbarian, right? It's like today saying, I can't understand what he's saying, all I hear is blah, blah, blah. Same sort of thing. A tyrant. Is a tyrant a bad thing? In today's world, it's a bad thing. Ancient Greece, it was a necessity, and then it kind of turned into a bad thing. That's why it's got the bad connotation now. Now, the actual definition of a tyrant is someone that takes power in an orthodox, but not necessarily wicked or even illegal manner. Because sometimes it works out. You give a guy absolute power to do what needs to be done, he gets it done. But then human nature takes over, and sometimes they don't want to go. We have both good and bad examples in ancient Greece from the same century, no less. Now, Athens started off as a democracy, remember? With the phalanx. Everyone gets a voice. Everyone gets a voice and opinion. We eventually vote on it. Now, as most societies develop, the rich tend to accumulate a lot of power, and the poor have none, and it gets to the point where it just becomes abusive, and there's two ways out of such a situation. An armed revolution, or someone decides to change the laws a little bit. Now, in Athens, they were smart enough to try to avoid the revolution. Solon, very smart man, everyone agreed, was given absolute power for 1 year. People are going to have their debts forgiven. We're going to have the land redistributed a little bit, right? Give some land to some people. Not one person owning everything. Going to fix it all up in a year. And lo and behold, look at this. 594 BC. He does it in 1 year. Leaves voluntarily. You gave him absolute power 1 year to fix up Athens, and he goes. See, absolute power is a great thing when the right person has it. Unfortunately, there aren't that many people who can handle it. Ever hear George Washington? About as close we've ever had to a dictator. He knew when to stop. Now, a few years later down in this century here, 546 BC, again, democracy appears to be going off the rails, and Pisistratus takes over. What do you know about his years? Yeah, it's more than one, isn't it? 546 BC, 527 BC. It's exact, too. Yeah, Pisistratus wants to make sure the record's clear that he was in charge. He dies in 527. What do you see behind that? Guy named Hippias. 527 to 510. Tell me something about these dates. More than 1 year? One follows behind the other? So what kind of relationship do you think Hippias has with Pisistratus? Right, that's father and son. So we've got an absolute dictatorship for several years, till somebody presumably dies, and then his son takes over and he's there for a very long time. What do you call that? Is that democracy? Nope, you have just established yourself a dictatorship. In fact, that's a monarchy. Father following the son, right? Now, in 510 BC, they've decided they got a little tired of this in Athens. And there's something to do about this. How do you usually solve things in the ancient world? You could vote, could stab somebody to death. The Council of 500 got together and discussed, and like most democracies, they didn't really get a whole lot done, right? 500 people shouting and yelling at each other. That sound familiar? Yeah, our Congress has 435. Think about it. We decide we're going to knife him to death, and here's the guy who does it. Cleisthenes. This is ancient Greece's George Washington. He wants to restore the democracy. He knifes Hippias to death. He's going to take over briefly until you have elections. Going to pull a Solon. And boom, has to face off a guy named Isagoras over here. And Isagoras is being backed by Sparta. Oh, you know about Sparta, don't you? Well, nonetheless, they take the Acropolis and they sit up there for a while and they can't really get off the Acropolis. So Isagoras makes a deal with Cleisthenes. Isagoras is going to leave. Spartans are going to leave. Athens goes back to being a democracy. Yay, it's not 1776, but hey, 510 BC, this far back, it'll do. Now let's talk about Sparta. Oh, everyone's heard about Sparta, Moulin Lave and all this. Now, Sparta, as you can see, is down here what we call the Peloponnese. Right? This is Sparta. Sometimes they call this Laconia. Now, Sparta is different. It's not a democracy, not even close. All right. Now, Sparta turns into Sparta we know because in 725 BC, they conquered this side of the whole Peloponnese. They own the whole southern half. 725 BC, they conquer it. Now, there's a big rebellion in 650 BC. It doesn't work. Sparta's size has doubled, and this is a restive province that doesn't really want to, be under Spartan control. So here's why Sparta becomes the Sparta we are familiar with. A guy named Lycurgus came up with this plan of turning it into a military state, and they call it Lycurgan Sparta. Lycurgus, by the way, is Greek for wolf. Spartan training starts the day you're born. If you're not deformed or anything wrong, hey, we'll see you again in 6 years. If something's wrong, clubfoot, some kind of deformity, legend has it they throw you off a hillside and let the wolves eat you. What they probably do is leave you out in the woods. Somebody came by and got the baby. Now, the reason Spartan training is so tough and so barbaric, they have to keep the helots under control because there's a lot more helots than Spartans. Not everybody's going to be a Spartan warrior. You, or your father, because you start training at 6, have to have enough money and enough land to feed 3 other people for 10 days. Right? And the Spartan training is barbaric. Starts, like I said, day you're born, you take a break, you're 6 years old, maybe you hold off to your 7, and day 1 they whip you 6 times with a bullwhip. 6. Why 6? Because you're 6 years old. And then they give you 1 more. That's your birthday present. Welcome to the Agoge. And you are going to be training 24/7. Even when you're asleep, you're training because they said your muscles are healing. Therefore, you're training. Welcome to Sparta. Don't feed you very well either. Nope. They give you a little bit of gruel. Give you some black beans and maybe an oxtail soup serving of that. And if you want food, you have to go steal it. Steal from a helot. Nobody cares you steal from a helot. But what if you get caught? Oh, man. Now you're in trouble. Not for stealing. You're in trouble for getting caught. And you're not allowed to get married till you're 30. So you got complete training. Now, I'm getting the feeling that they didn't really wait till they were 30. A lot of times they're not just looking for food. I'm pretty sure they're looking for something else too. That's why the population kept increasing. Think about it, right? Now, there's one thing to say about Sparta. When you make a deal with the Spartans, they stick with it because law is their master. They have 2 kings. It sounds like a recipe for chaos, but it actually works because they had several kings removed for violating the law. So if you violate the law, you will be punished in Sparta, even if you're the king. You talk about a serious, hardcore society here. Sure, you can do stuff. Don't get caught. Now, eventually, Greece is going to get into it with Persia. Write those 4 battles down for me. All right. Now, in 490 BC, actually a little bit before 490 BC, on the coastline of their Asia Minor, some Greek states had revolted against Persia. Persia smacked them down and found out there's some volunteers coming from the mainland, i.e. Athens. So Persia, under Darius, is going to punish the Greeks. So they send the fleet all the way to Marathon. They get off the beach. Allegedly, there's 100,000 Persians, right? Because there's 9,000 Greeks, 1,000 Plataea, and Herodotus, we'll talk about him later, says there were 10 times as many Persians. Now, I've been to that beach in Marathon, and I can tell you there's no way that place is going to support 100,000. So my professional estimate is 25,000 Persians, 10,000 Greeks. Well, the Greeks form up in that battle formation called a what? Phalanx, charge forward, smash into the Persians, and push them back into the sea. Allegedly, it was on September the 11th, 490 BC. That's kind of a recent interpretation of events. I think it's September 12th, but yeah, no sense getting into a screaming match over that. Now, Darius is the king of Persia. Darius is a calm, level-headed kind of guy. But after Marathon, he just loses it. He's screaming that he is going to kill all the Greeks. He's going to get an army so huge that they will absolutely not stand a chance against this thing. And he is spending day after day, minute after minute, pulling together this army. He even details a slave to sit next to him every meal and say, "Sire, remember the Athenians. Sire, remember the Athenians." How would you like that job? Oh, yeah, I don't think I want that job. If you get stuck with that job, make sure you get those orders in writing. Might not help during execution. Okay, you got those written down, right? All right, good. Now, Persia is absolutely horrified after Marathon. Now, Persians are brave soldiers. They're not imperial stormtroopers from Star Wars. Okay, they don't show up and hang off the end of a spear. You've seen the size of Persia. We'll have more details how that expanded later. But they're on the wrong side of a technological imbalance here. Look at the Greeks. We've got the shields, the spears, the formation, bronze armor. Even got peltets back there. Persians, they have these nice, comfortable-looking pajamas. Wicked-looking spear, but this wicker shield. All right, that's gonna, those Spartan shield, the Spartans and Athenians, their spears are gonna punch right through that stuff. So it's not like the Persians don't know what they're doing. They're just fighting in a completely different environment against a different enemy with different technology and different formations. But now they've gotten a good look at them. Now, 5th century BC internet, right after the Athenians had smashed the Persians back into the water, they sent a guy named Philippides to go get the message, everybody get together, right? First they went down to Sparta. Sparta said they'll get there as soon as they can. Of course, Marathon was over by the time they appeared. Right after the battle, Philippides, of course, ran from Marathon, 26 miles, all the way to Athens to tell them the news that we won Nicaea, and then allegedly dropped dead. If you won, I didn't see what the big deal, what the big hurry was, but I guess people really want to know. Philippides. Now there's Marathon. That's probably what it might have looked like. Once again, right here. You see, we've got nice looking pajamas. We've got wicker shield over here. He's got a sword. But look at this Greek. Look at the armor here. It's got this armor. Shield's much bigger. They're going to smash into each other, and you can see who's going forward, who's going backwards. Greeks quite often fight barefoot. That's just something they like to do. Toughens up your feet, especially run on the rocky soil here. If you look at the rest of these pictures, man, hey, Greeks are winning. What's this guy doing? You think he's looking at his phone or something? Pulled his helmet back to look at it? Got some reenactors here on the beach. See, look at that solid wall right here. Very hard to fight your way through it. And those are Athenians. Imagine what it's like to go through a Spartan phalanx. Here's an idea. You're not going to make it through. Now, Darius dies in the year 486 BC. He never got a chance to take another shot at the Greeks. So his son Xerxes takes over. Oh, you know Xerxes. You saw the movie 300, then you've seen Xerxes. By the way, he wasn't a 7-foot-tall Brazilian transsexual. Okay, we'll just get that out of the way. This time, Athens and Sparta coordinate. If anything shows up on the water, the Athenian Navy is going to take care of it. Anything on land, Spartan army's there. And Xerxes comes marching his way towards Greece. They don't use the water, they march along the coastline of the Aegean. At one point at the Hellespont, a storm broke a pontoon bridge, and Xerxes got so mad he ordered his soldiers to whip the water. That kind of tells you he's got a bit of an anger problem. Well, they rebuild the boat and the water behaves itself, and off he goes. Now, the Spartans, 300 of them, are going to be waiting for the Persians at a place called Thermopylae. You see in the movie, it's not a mountain pass, it's more like what you're looking at now. You see the mountains come right up against the water, and there's really nowhere to go. Might as well be a mountain pass. Now, Spartan phalanx is the most vicious formation known in the entire ancient world. Greek phalanx is 8 people deep. It goes forward. It can run you over. A Spartan phalanx, usually 4 to 6 deep, because these guys train all the time and are bigger and stronger, can also maneuver in different directions. Breaks down into squads, one direction the other way, one direction the other way. The name of a squad in ancient Greek is amotia. Does that sound familiar? Amotia, as in emotion. That's right, you've been training with these guys their whole life. Nobody runs from each other in a Spartan phalanx, right? Now, Herodotus, again writing about the Greek and Persian wars, said that the Persians had an army of 5 million people. I think that's exaggerated a little bit. I think closer to 200,000 might have been a little bit more accurate. Of course, given the period, it might as well have been 5 million, right? If you're 300 Spartans, it looks like the whole world's coming after you. And of course, being Spartans, they don't care. They had other Greeks with them. They told them, get lost. We got it from here. 700 Thespians decided to stay behind with the Spartans. For 2 days, the Persians are smashing headlong into the Spartan phalanx. Again, bronze weaponry, 6-foot spears, mean-looking swords there called a xiphos, right? Like meat cleavers, these things. Persians, you have your pajamas, your wicker shield. They're just not going to make any headway, man. They are just getting destroyed. It's like waves hitting a rock. It's just not giving way, right? Now, allegedly, a traitor named Ephratiades showed them the way around. Maybe he existed, maybe he didn't. Persians are not stupid. They're mountain people, too. They know there's a pass somewhere to be found. They're going to get around it. When they do, they tell everybody to get lost. Thespians stay with them. And they fight to the very bitter end, taking, my estimation, about 20,000 Persians with them. Now, the way to Athens is open. Nobody's looking for a rematch with Sparta, right? Anyway, they march to Athens. Everyone in Athens gets on a boat, and they get out of town. They burn Athens to the ground. Everybody is happy in Persia. We've burned them to the ground. But that Athenian fleet is still out there. And they're going to trap it against the rocks and destroy it. Xerxes even builds a throne so he can watch it. One small problem. Greek ships are better than the Persian ones. See, because the Persian ships are being piloted by Phoenicians. They're there because someone made them go there. All right, Greeks are fighting for their homeland. And now, of course, the smaller Greek ships get between the bigger Persian ones or Phoenician ones, and they sink. And of course, a lot of Phoenicians just surrender and go home when it's over. And Xerxes watches his entire fleet get destroyed. So he decides it's time to go home. Leaves a guy named Meridius in charge in the following year, 479 BC. 40,000 Spartans. Another 40,000 Greeks destroyed his Persian army at the Battle of Plataea in 479 BC. Greeks and Persians will fight each other again, but they're never going to do it in Greece, are they? Now, I went a little bit long on that, but I tend to do that stuff when it comes to ancient Greece. So, alrighty, we come back and we'll talk more about Greece next time around. I'll give you guys a little bit of break for now. Have a great day.